We firmly believe that Black women are not only magical, but we are as invaluable and powerful as vibranium. Our podcast is dedicated to empowering Black and Brown women to embrace the transformative power of astrology and tarot. Through these intuitive arts, the Melanated Mystics will guide you to explore and connect with your deep inner magic and help you to finally release the burdens of Black Superwoman syndrome. It's time to redirect our energies inward and prioritize ourselves on this transformative journey of self-discovery. Karrie.
Yes.
All right, we're back. Y'all, welcome back to the Melanated Mystics. We are here in full effect. We are here in full effect. We already got started talking. So this is the official start. And I have so much, like a little bit of trepidation and a little bit of excitement about today's topic.
Same thing. Trepidation, excitement, same thing.
It's, and I think the fact that we're both doing a lot of good work, we clearly are the mistresses of our modalities and are feeling secure in our spiritual walk, because this one hits different. I think that our topic today hits different for Black women. Karrie, tell us tell the people what we are, these beautiful melanated mystics out here, what we're talking about today.
All right. So today we're talking about what going no contact means for Black women, because it is a specifically different situation when we're talking about our community. So yeah, let's sit with that. I know there's probably some reactions.
Mm-hmm. And it's different for us. We were just saying this hits very different. It's because it's almost as though it's almost if we were to think of things as being taboo.
Right.
Yeah. Cutting yourself off from your family, there's so many who you think you are. Don't forget about literally we're told our whole lives, especially if you're a striver, you're an achiever, you're a people pleaser as a child. Don't ever forget where you came from. Don't get too high. You forget who you are. And sometimes for your own mental health, peace of mind, and peace of spirit, we have to love from a distance. Or we have to learn how to unlove. We have to learn how to detach completely in order to be healthy and to be whole. So I'm glad we're talking about it.
Yes. Going no contact for Black women. We were talking about earlier how that's different because Black women are often breadwinners. We're often the source of comfort, the source of things in the community and also in the family. And so going no contact from, say, our mothers or going no contact from our family members, sometimes those people are living in your home, and sometimes, or you're living with them. There's also socioeconomic things to talk about here, specifically when we're talking about Black women in the U.S. in particular. I think for me, the biggest taboo part of it that hits my heart is this idea of not giving access. Because I think as a Black woman, especially here in the US, that is really what we were brought here to do. If we're talking about Pan-African slave trade and all that business, was to give access to our bodies, access to our minds, access to our mysticism, access to us. Like, how dare you not give access? That's what you came here for. And so also in relationships, you are being access to your partner, giving access to your children. Just, the whole idea of Big Mama is the center of a community. Why? Because she's what everything else comes from. You need something, you go to her. So the idea of being a Black woman who is not giving access feels like a betrayal, feels like an abandonment. What are they going to do without me? What are they going to do? Also, the idea that, going no contact is basically saying, I am putting myself before you. That's also a huge thing for Black women. It's like we are literally validated by how much we sacrifice and how much we give, right?
Thing that makes me so angry about that, like that actually kind of hurt a little bit when you said that, because it's such a contradiction. I feel like we're told all the time, girl, you got to put yourself first. Put yourself first over that man, over this, over that job. But when we put ourselves first, oh,
You know what she
Can
did?
you even believe that? Like,
yes, yes.
So anyway, and that's unfair. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you for letting me.
No, go interject anytime, because we're feeling this today. Like, we might have some moments of just having to interject, because this is a healing for us as well. Having to confront these stigmas and having to confront this, this is the way you're supposed to be in order to be accepted by your own people. This is rough. And also, it's talking about mothers. Again, mothers in general, regardless of race, it's already taboo to talk about not talking to your mother. And I don't know how many times you bring something like that up, and someone on the bus, at the bus stop, stranger you don't even know, will talk to you and tell you, you don't want to do that, honey, because such and such and such and such, all up in your business. Why? Because Black women, everyone thinks they have access to us, right? So of course a stranger thinks they can just start talking to you about this stuff. For Black mothers and Black women separating from Black mothers or just their mothers, it's double. Because again, you had this, this connection, this lineage. The girls of the family were often helpers, helping their mother be able to be a matriarch, or be able to be a provider, be able to just be, right? To cut that off is a hard thing to do. So what that means for Black women is very different. And the reason we came up with this, or we wanted to talk about this, is because Halicue, you were noticing, like on TikTok, a lot of people talking about the ramifications, or, this is obviously psychologically hitting a lot of people, a lot of Black women at this time, about how to do this no contact. As we talk about self-love, self-care, we're all going to come to this point of who needs to leave, and oftentimes it's our mothers, and oftentimes it's our family members, in order for us to persevere. So yeah, so that's what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one. And to kind of place it in context for people, to our wonderful, wonderful listeners, I'm just going to give you some examples of like the way I was brought up and why this is so important, and why I feel like it's revolutionary and so exciting that Black women are talking about it like this. Because literally, if you're on TikTok, if you're on, the Bird app or whatever, it's just different for us. Why? Because so many of us have been trained like decades after slavery, really decades after the civil rights era. I was brought up that nothing was private or mine. Nothing. My room. You could not lock doors. You could not close doors. You damn sure couldn't slam doors. Who do you think? Whose house? Who are you talking? Whose door are you slamming? Don't you know whose house this is? So first of all, grown up scare. Whoever was raising you, for me, I was brought up by a single mom, had access all the time. Your thoughts, what you wrote about, your most private, innermost things. First of all, you already weren't allowed to really express, talk, be angry, have any exchange. So say you have a diary and write it down. I know so many Black women that, like mothers, grandmas, fathers, sometimes, what you mean privacy? What you mean your diary? Anything in this house is mine. And by the way, so even that, like access, access there. In our house, our family was huge. My mom was one of 7 siblings. She's the oldest daughter. I always say my mom raised 7 children way before she got to me. Like, I wasn't her first child. She was truly and she's still responsible for, in a lot of ways, my aunts and uncles. But when people would travel, like people would come to visit, or somebody was coming, oh, you can just sleep in Halicue and Andy's room. No. They're going to sleep on the floor. Like, they'll sleep on the floor for days, weeks. Like, family reunion? Oh, like to this day, I don't even like thinking about a family reunion, because that means not only am I cooking, cleaning constantly, Andy and I are on the floor. We're displaced. We're wherever the hell people. So even our space, like our bed, our pillow was not mine. Your room, your stuff, just at any time. Food, cleaning, caring. Like people could come in our house all the time, like because I'm the first daughter of the first daughter. So like our house was the hub. So it meant dishes constantly, fixing plates. You think you've got the dishes washed, and then here comes cousin so-and-so and they family or whatever, Mr. So-and-so up the street, or the postman, the pastor, his wife, children. You couldn't even have, like, even in, like, around your chores, like, you couldn't have any. Okay, so I guess I'm up for another 2 hours. And finally, even free time. even when you finished your homework on the weekends, even when you finished, like at night, it's the weekend, it's Saturday. What do you mean you want to go to the movies? You want to go out? No. You're not going nowhere till this house is clean, till the roof is retiled, till you rotate the tires, till you dig this ditch. I'm kind of exaggerating, but I'm kind of not. So that's when we say it hits different. So in case y'all are wondering what we talk about and why it's so hard for us to do it, is because so many of us have been brought up into that's the way you show love. To constantly serve yourself up, a lot of times for abuse. Like a lot of times we're just taught to, even if this is hurting me, even if this is mentally abusive, it's emotionally abusive, financially abusive even. I know women that were like raised, you were expected to do everything. And by the way, money, what allowance? Like, what are you talking about? Oh, but be fed, do your homework, all that. So I bring this up because, and the reason, so in case people are wondering, why is it different from Black women? Because we don't know who's listening. Welcome. Well, first of all, welcome. But that's why it's different. Because for a lot of us, especially if you're a daughter of the South, if you're the oldest daughter or just a daughter, that's the lot. Everyone has access to you all the time. And even if you learn to have boundaries around your friend, your coworkers, whatever, your families, a lot of us are raised that, everybody has access to you whenever the hell it is they want. So that's why it's a little different for us. And I just want to give some personal examples. I just wanted, since we're sharing.
I was just making an assumption, that everybody got it, but you're right. Not everybody is going to understand why it's different. I think for me, I didn't grow up in a huge family like you did. And I was, it was just my older brother and myself, and we were raised by my mother and my stepdad. But the beginning, very early part of my life, it was just my mom. One of the things that I think, because we didn't have people coming in and out of the house, because I didn't grow up in the South. And even though my mother's Southern, she was very secretive. And that is probably the way that this abuse mostly showed up, was keeping secrets, keeping appearances. That is about the daughter as well. Because, boy's going to go out there and mess up and do stuff. And he's not expected to not talk about it or to not mess up, right? The daughter is expected to not mess up, to often make up for the fact that the son messed up. And the keeper of secrets, the keeper of, we didn't have enough of this, or you don't let anybody know that this is going on over here, that this didn't, or this isn't happening. And it's so insidious, and it is a form of abuse too. But that you having that access, like you were saying, to your mind, to your time, to your space, always, you're the keeper of this. That's also giving access to you. Here's your chore, here's your thing. And I think that we don't understand the stress of being a Black woman and holding so much of this. Of course, at one point, you're going to have to break. Something's going to happen at the point in your life where you're going to have to say, this ends here, this ends with me. Now, in astrology, you can start to look at aspects that will point to when this time is, or if you even have that signature. Some people are like, but I had a wonderful childhood. And I'm like, well, you probably do. We all view it from the eyes of a child until we don't. Until something comes along that goes, wait, that didn't happen when I was a kid. Oh, I didn't get that. Oh, I'm seeing this now. I'm seeing this differently. Sometimes we have aspects already in our chart that point to that we are going to, at some point, need to go no contact, in order to survive, in order to continue to evolve as the souls that we came here to be. And I'm sure we're going to talk about that as well as astrology, but also as well as tarot, how you can find out. And then we'll be talking about, collectively as Black women, how we can do this, how we can start the ball rolling in terms of no contact as a collective. But it's good that you talked about, Halicue, like the difference for Black women. You and I both have instances in our lives where we've had to go no contact. And I will tell you, we're not like comfortable talking about this, but the times that someone has, I've actually seen somebody come out and talk about no contact have been the most healing. I remember there's a woman, I can't even remember her name. Dang it, I can't remember, but she came out with a book recently. It's like, I'm so glad my mother's dead, or something like that. Jeanette McCurdy, I think that's what's her name. She was like a child star on Nickelodeon, and she came up with a book called I'm So Glad My Mother's Dead, or something like that. It was like a bestseller, right? Well, what I thought was so interesting, now she's not Black, but her story was, I was like, girl, I've dealt with, oh my God, and I wasn't a child star on Nickelodeon or wherever she was on, but like talking about her narcissistic mother and the way that her mother just disregarded so many things, she was a consistent afterthought. And I really related to that. And then I related to the title of this book. I'm so glad my mother's dead, because honestly, sometimes people don't get any relief until the mother's gone. It's actually, no contact can save your life. It can save your quality of life. And you might have to do it a couple times. Like that's something I learned myself. Oh, I'm at different stages of life. I might have to do this a couple times. So we're going to share our stories about times we've had to go no contact. And then we'll get into the how you can heal, how you can work through this energy through astrology and tarot.
Tarot was certainly a way, and was the first step, before I even knew it was the first step, of me separating. Karrie and I were talking earlier about enmeshment and how I first found out about that term. I was in therapy. Also, by the way, I'm a hoodoo. I claim hoodoo, but I'm one of these like mystics, witches, hoodoos, whatever appellation makes you feel good, that believes in physical health care and mental health care. Like, I want you to go to the doctor. I want you to go to your therapist. Tarot for me was one of the first ways I began to investigate, like, what do I think? What do I feel? Because I know I was navigating life for the longest time based on what my mother thought, my sister Andy thought, because the triplets are babies, like during, kind of my early adult years. And like my family, like what they, because I'm Halicue, I'm the oldest daughter. I look like my mother. I look like my grandmother. But I just veered off in a very, very, very different direction. And the way I went no contact was kind of passive, but it was it was a part of my healing. Like, I got into deep, deep, deep therapy about 4.5 years ago because of I call it a near-death experience in my marriage. My mother is, when couples are having problems, got brought into it in a way I didn't want her brought into it. My husband brought her into it. And in therapy, dealing with that, it was where I kind of, like, the idea of being shamed or embarrassed, like in front of my mother, was so hard for me, because I know from the outside it looked like my marriage is perfect, like life was great, whatever. I wasn't in Mississippi that often, but I also had a lot of guilt. I also know people were saying a lot of shit about, like, Halicue can travel all over the world, but she can't come, she can't come home. But it took me, when I began therapy, and this is different, y'all, than falling into a crevasse. Now, sometimes because of anxiety and depression, we fall into a crevasse. We'll self-isolate because we don't really know how to reach out, or as a way we can't deal with it. We just kind of hide away. This is different. Like, it's different than that. Not that that doesn't serve a purpose too, but when it was happening, I'll never forget because I felt the guilt over people calling and me just not picking up the phone. I felt so guilty over that. And it was so important that I didn't for a long time. And I used my cards to help me with that. And if I hadn't gotten the distance, and because I can't even tell you like how much the cards would help me. We're going to talk a little bit later about like cards that we'll recommend and some stuff for you to work on and journal through. We call it heart work. But it was so important for me to do it. I thought for a while I wasn't going to be able to have a relationship with my mother. I really thought I was not going to, because as I did the therapy, as I did the work, I realized, oh, this is not my marriage. This is not even about me and intimate relationships. It's not about that wounding and the hurt I caused, the hurt my husband caused, like what we were doing to each other, because we both actually had horribly traumatic childhoods. My therapist used to call us rescues, like that we were rescue dogs. Like, we were like, we'd been mistreated, but we were healthy. We were attractive. We were smart. We just needed the right home, and we made a home out of each other, but it was unhealthy because when we came together, we had no idea how to have a relationship. But when I realized the wound, the original wound was the wound with my mother, my childhood, the way I was raised, the way I was parentified, the way, just the way a lot of families down south do. There was physical abuse. We whip, hit, slap, threaten, shame, manhandle, even sometimes when the mother has been abused or the grandmother has been abused. That's just something that at least in my family, we just passed down, and it did so much damage. And there was a time during therapy, like when you start realizing that, like, this is why I formed this relationship. This is why this happened. This is why I did that. that hurts. And then you get angry, and then you get very, very, very mad, and you realize I'm getting a tremor in my voice now. You can't even handle the phone call. Like, you can't even handle doing it. So I'll never forget that time. And I really thought, oh no, am I just going to be one of those people that didn't have a relationship with their mother, like with their family? I love my family. I love Mississippi. I love who I am. But I needed to go no contact in order to find who the fuck I was and like what, excuse my language, what I thought, what I felt, who I am. Like this discovery of self, girl. Every time you talk about Aries and the self, like I get a little emotional, but thank God I did it, because now I understand. And now I can have a relationship with my family because I understand. And I know that I'm safe and I'm protected. And even if I'm not, I call upon my tools to do it. And my cards are almost always where I go and how I do it. So that's just a little bit about me going no contact. I think my no contact went for it's almost 2 years, I think, when I think about it. And because of that, I was able to reconnect, or when my mom wanted to reconnect with me, I was able to do it in a healthy and a whole way. And I have hope for not only our relationship, but for my sisters, how my sisters are going to raise their children, raise their daughters, and how, we talk a lot about breaking generational curses or interrupting patterns. That was mine. And I needed to do that so that I could make sure that my daughters would never know what the back of my hand felt like, would never know what that nastiness and that disgust, in my voice that I'd lived through a lot. I'm just disgusted because even when I hear that word, I can literally hear my grandmother, and how much it hurt and how shameful it was. But the curse I broke was, maybe they're princesses. They may be the princesses of Marin County, but they know what it's like to always be able to just be in their mother's space. They know what it's like to throw themselves on my lap. My oldest will literally bite my cheek or pretend to lick me. Little scary Scorpio, totally different because she has amazing boundaries. She was born with boundaries. Mommy, keep that Leo shit over there. Okay. keep that shit over there. Not today. I've raised girls that have never been hit in anger. I try my hardest when I feel like I'm about to go there and speak in anger. I take a moment, I moderate, I show them what it's like to work through this anger and then come back. And I may have a little tone, but they've never been hit. They've never been, shamed. If they feel like we're coming anywhere close to it, Mommy, what are you doing? What are you saying? What's going on? And, oh yeah, you're right. Because we don't do that. We don't talk like that in this family. So that's just a little bit of, in a very abbreviated way, over the hundreds of episodes that we're going to give you. We'll talk more and our stories will become a little bit more clear to you. But this is a part of the healing. We had to go there. I had to do it. And if anyone was raised to see no contact as a taboo, it was your girl. It was me. So I feel you from the bottom of my heart, and our cards can help. Your cards can help us. And actually, as I get ready to lob it over to Karrie, if you have your decks with you, the same way down south, they tell you to go to your Bible. Would you pick up your Bible? I'm going to tell you to read the book of Beyonce. We're going to go to the book of Beyonce, chapter 3, verse 4. No, except instead of the book of Beyonce, the Bible, go to your tarot decks and pull out the Ten of Swords. We'll talk about it a little later.
I love that. I love the go to your Bible. And, because that's go to our tools, because that's really what happens. We go to our cards. I go to my astrology chart. What the hell is happening? Let me go take a look at this thing, So you make that your source, make that your little source material on yourself. What's going on with me? Let me figure that out. Okay. Going to the Bible is not going to help you figure out what's going on with you. And I do think, what's interesting, most interesting about your story, Halicue, is that you did the no contact so you could have contact later in a healthier way. And you may not have known that at the time, but I want people to understand who are listening that can also be the end product of no contact. That a lot of times people will not go no contact because they fear that this is it. This is the end game. But just knowing that there are stories out there for people who that was part of the healing for them, and as well as their mothers or their parents or whomever it was they were going no contact with. They need that space as well to see themselves. And we'll need that throughout life. Life is, like I've said before in previous episodes, healing is an ongoing thing. So start to get happy with it. Start to enjoy the process, because you don't just do a little shadow work and then move on about your business. As long as they're light, there's going to be shadows, right? So that's something I really loved about hearing that story, Halicue. And I think, for me, I've gone no contact multiple times in my relationship with my mother. And that is because, and I can literally, look back and go, every time I took a step into myself and my power, that's when I had to go no contact with my mother. Because my relationship with my mom is very much a power struggle. And so everything was about the balance of my power. My mother was consistently, very much always talked about, I'm the only woman in this house, so there was a lot of stress of, who holds the power here. Of course, as soon as I start showing signs of being a woman, I'm going to start being a threat to that, right? And so most of our, up until I was about 12, 13 years old, I was kind of just really obedient, little girl. And then when I got to be a teenager, it was just like all hell broke loose in our house, right? And that's when I was becoming what I thought was rebellious, but really it was just becoming myself, becoming a person who has individual thoughts and individual opinions, which were threatening. How dare you think differently from what I think? Clearly we're having them triggering. Clearly we're getting triggered, and again, this is good. Triggers are good because you sit with them and be like, okay, where is this coming from? And where do I feel this in my body? But yeah, that feeling of every time I take a step forward into who I am and who I want to be, there would be this contention. And my mom was a big hitter, very, very, very much into physical hitting when I was younger. The thing is that I'm a Leo. Okay. My mom's a Libra. My brother's a Pisces, right? My mom's a Libra. My stepdad's a Libra. So that was a issue. Okay. Because I had these two Libras in the house. Very, very, Libras love peace and harmony, which is hilarious considering my mother. But they like to appear that way. I'm a Libra rising, so I know a little bit about this. So there was lots of secrets in our house. Don't want other people to know that we don't get along or whatever, right? And then there's my brother, the Pisces, the softie that can't handle anything ever, right? And he's 5 years older than I was. And then here's this Leo. And the Leo is just like, why aren't you guys why don't we tell the truth? Because then we'll all just be able to go and do what we want to do. I was really fighting for my own creative voice and my own creativity and my own just presence. Because it was just like, I can't be here with those wishy-washy folks, right? These Librans who just kind of levitating because they're an air sign. And then the Pisces who's so down on the ground that he can't pick himself up, And then there's this Leo that's just like, why aren't you fighting? Why aren't you fighting for this identity? And so for me, when my mom would hit us, I stopped caring, and after it would just be I would give no actual, oh, ouch, you hit me. My brother, he'd be on the floor. Oh my God, his life's over. But after a while, I learned it was oh, this woman's going to keep acting up if I keep giving her some sort of reaction. So I stopped doing it. And then she stopped doing it because it was just this isn't working. It's it's not threatening anymore. And especially when I got taller, But that's the thing is that, a lot of my vigilance came from that. And so I would go non-contact a couple of times throughout my life. The first time was when I left home. I left home the day before my 18th birthday. And it was because my mother and I had been fighting. And I had just graduated because I graduated a little earlier. I had a later birthday. So I was 17 when I graduated high school. And then I had all these months before I turned 18. And I saw all my friends leaving home and doing all this cool stuff. And I was just I'm still here because I'm not 18 yet, right? And my mom and I were fighting all the time. And I knew in my heart, I said, this is going to get worse. This is not going to get, I'm a woman now and I'm in her home. And this is only going to get worse, right? So everything we were fighting. So I kind of made a plan. I called a friend and I said, hey, does your dad have that empty room at his place? Can I rent it if I need to? Called another friend, hey, who had my car, my dear friend Micah, who's passed. He had this amazing sports car that we used to drive around in. And I would be like, can you come pick me up at a moment's notice? And I had these two things in hand. That day we started fighting and I was like, I don't want to spend my birthday here. And I started packing up my stuff. I called Micah. I said, well, when can you get over here? He's like, I'm on my way. I called my friend Keisha and I was like, hey, can your dad let me in the place? She's like, he's ready. And it was boom, boom, boom. And it was what I think is so fascinating about this is because we think going no contact is going to be this big thing. That was probably the calmest conversation I've ever had with my mother was, we're not working out. you know, you don't like me. I don't like you. This is not working out. We need to cut this off right now. And she just sat there smoking cigarettes. She didn't have anything to say. It's like, this is a situation, right? And I left. And I think that that's something good for people to understand, that like what you conjure up in your brain is not necessarily what's going to happen. Same thing when I had to do no contact with my real father recently. He was also a very violent man. You know, he'd been through the Vietnam War, alcoholic, all this other stuff. He's been sober for like 20 something years, but I was ready for him to go to those places. None of that. So you start to realize that the more you show up for yourself, the more it actually deflates the situation. No contact is about you. It's not about them. So going no contact for me, and I had to do that a couple times in my life, right? That happened when I was 18. About 2 years later, my mom and I had made up and we were, fine again. And then I had to go no contact with her again when I was 21. Over some other stuff, stuff happens, layers come off, right? Went no contact with her again. I went no contact with her on September 11th, 2010. And I was living in New York. And then September 11th happened a year later, September 11th happened. And I was, running around out of buildings like everybody else that day. And the first thing I thought was, I have to call my mom because she's going to be looking at the television screen and going, what the hell is going on? And so I called her. That was breaking no contact again. We had several times after that we had no contact, but each time it was about me moving into this new version of myself, moving into a more powerful part of myself, realizing that I could no longer keep a abusive relationship where I was going. So that's what I want to stress for people listening right now, is that if you're ready to go no contact, that means there's something better for you. There's somebody better that you're moving into, or else you wouldn't be feeling the need to leave this version of you behind. That's what it is. It's like the no contact might have happened several times. It's never as big and bad as you think it's going to be. And in the case with Halicue, for sure, it could also be the best thing to happen to your relationship.
It was certainly the best thing that ever could have happened to me as a mother. Because as I was going through that, I'm raising teenage girls. And if there are any years I remember like it was yesterday, boys, those teenage years, like Duran Duran takes me back into Black history like nothing else. Like I knew exactly what tragedies and heartaches. But thank God, because I needed the space to understand my own story and to also understand that, it is the mother's responsibility to set the stage for closeness and knowing your children. Like that's where I was like, how could anyone really in my family really know me except one or maybe one aunt, like one uncle maybe, that actually were like really nurturing and maternal and had time for me, because my mother's a huge career woman and she's not taking anything away from her from the Mississippi Black women's history. Like she has truly made, and the people she has served in the criminal justice system over all these years. But I needed that space and that distance to understand that, it is never my daughter's role or responsibility to make our relationship successful. It's my responsibility. It's my work. Like, what do I do to make sure I know my children? A lot of times for me, it's shutting the fuck up. Because I talk so much and I just want to, the way I express myself is through words. And I just want you to know, I love you. I love you. I love you. I'm here. I'm available. But that it was my job. That's my it's my responsibility. Also, my astrology, Karrie, learning from you too, has taught me, the Scorpio needs to be shown love in a very different way than the Libra, like my lanky Libra and my scary Scorpio, like very different. And going no contact was a huge part of the fact I know I'm a good mother. I know I annoy the shit out of my girls, like, because they're teenagers and they're trying their hardest to get my voice out of their head and be who they are. But if nothing else, and if you're a mother too, y'all out there, if you are mothering somebody, I don't care if it's a sibling or you actually have your own little people. Sometimes it's important to do that so you can come through for them the way you're supposed to. You can know them the way you're supposed to. Because Karrie, we should do an episode. I'm actually writing this down on secrets in the Black woman. Because girl, like as you said, in secret,
we need some guests for that too. We need some guests to come in for that too.
Yeah, like that's why I was secretive. I didn't understand like I could have a love relationship. I thought, oh, I use my beauty, my talent, my smarts to like manipulate. That's what love is. Like how well I manipulate like somebody. How well do I use these gifts to manipulate somebody? So anyway, this is just to say like, and my astrology has helped me in that. Karrie teaching me about it and me becoming interested in it myself, and my children's astrology is something totally different too. We should get into at another time.
Well, also when you realize your astrology, and if you start to realize that you were given the mother that you were given for a reason too, that blows your mind when you start going to that.
Karrie, is there a specific, I remember you saying earlier, like a specific aspect that says something. Did we already talk about that, or we didn't get to that yet, did we?
Well, there are some specific, I'm glad you brought that up. There are some specific natal aspects. And so natal means what's in your chart, what's permanently in your chart. That's part of your birth tattoo, part of what you came here to explore and to embody. I do want to say really quick, the thing that's astrology is not about fate or destiny. You absolutely do have free will. But what astrology does do is it gives you a blueprint of your beliefs. Okay. So what it does is it says this person came into this time in history with this type of environment, with these socioeconomic things, and raised by these people, meaning they will create certain beliefs. And for a portion of their life, they will lead their life by those beliefs. And when certain transits hit out there, this person is going to have the opportunity to change their beliefs about themselves, and therefore change what happens in their life. So it's important to understand that it's not like some sort of curse or like, I'm doomed to feel this way. It's been given to you to have the experience of overcoming, of living through, of growing from, evolving from, winning from, triumphing, that's what it's about. The experience. That's the experience. That's the only thing that we leave this world with is experience. Okay. So when I talk about these natal aspects, they are there for a reason, and you do have the opportunity to grow out of them and believe differently from them. So the aspect, when you look in your chart, you can see like, people who have issues with their parents probably already know it. You don't need an astrology chart to tell you that. But there are certain aspects that will point to it. Anything that has to do with the moon is going to talk about mother stuff, or whoever that role, regardless of gender or gender role, whoever played that nurturing role or was supposed to play that nurturing role, right? The sun represents the father energy, or whoever embodied that paternal role. Sometimes that's mothers, especially in the Black community. The mother was both. And then, so those are kind of the main archetypes for that. Now, if you have any square aspects means challenges that are meant to be overcome. Oppositions means like a flip-flop of having, kind of a constant contradiction of experiences. Those are called hard aspects. And those, if you have those in relationship to your moon, then you're probably somebody who's going to have to go no contact with your mother at some point, and in your lifetime, for multiple reasons, right? Now, if you have like, say, a moon square Venus, that has to do with the mother and her issues with beauty and how those were transferred to you. If you have like a moon square Saturn, that's usually a mother who was quite rigid and controlling and was kind of an icy mother, was missing the warmth of what is usually associated with the moon. Me, I have a moon square Pluto. And the moon represents our emotional nurturing nature. And then it's a square, which is a challenging aspect that's meant to be overcome, to Pluto, which is our Scorpio energy, meaning transformation and crisis, meaning I was meant to be transformed by the kind of over-controlling, crisis-oriented mother who most likely is a narcissist or a borderline personality. Usually when we're talking about Pluto, we're talking about those kind of issues. So you can look on your chart to see if you have those types of anything, in a hard aspect to the moon. And then there are also, you could have the most amazing mother ever, but there are still transits out there. And transits will tell you when you'll have difficult, challenging times with the mother. These are times when, if you're thinking, man, should I go no contact with my mom? Take a look at your chart and go and find out if this certain planets are going through the fourth house, which is the house of the home and maternal energy. then you can get an idea of like, yeah, this is the time, right? So, the fourth house is something we should always have our eyes on because it represents our childhood home, our mother energy, but also our current home, right? So you could have like, say, Pluto going through the fourth house. Pluto represents transformation through crisis situations, right? And if Pluto goes through the fourth house, that means crisis situations to the way you viewed your childhood or issues with your mother. But it also could mean issues with your current home. Maybe check the infrastructure of your home and find out, make sure there's no skeletons under there. Maybe you might have to move several times. And it also represents real estate and things that have to do with that because it's literally the current home, which is often a reflection of the home that you had when you were younger until we know better. This is what I think is so interesting is people who have natally have Pluto in the fourth house, like Meghan Markle. Pluto in the fourth house usually means that this person has a lifetime of tumultuous issues regarding the mother and the family. And what I think is so fascinating about Meghan Markle is that she absolutely does have so many challenging aspects with having to do with her family and then, of course, her husband's family as well. Now, what's cool about her chart is she has an amazing aspects in regards to her mother. She's got a gold relationship with her mother. So, the fourth house in her chart mostly represents her family and not so much, but she's got some beautiful, loving aspects with regards to her mother, with her moon energy. But she's a prime example, if you have Pluto in the fourth house, of somebody who will be dealing with family and mother and nurturing and all that stuff multiple times throughout your life. And if you have Pluto transiting there, that will be a time in your life where you'll be dealing with it. So you see Pluto going through the fourth house. You see Neptune going through there, which is like curious confusion. You see Uranus going through there, which is like sudden awakenings to childhood behaviors and patterns. That's also a good no contact time. Saturn goes through there. Saturn represents challenges and obstacles. Okay. If Jupiter goes through there, don't worry about it. That means you're about to get some money from your mom. But
wait, if Jupiter goes through what? Say it again.
If Jupiter goes through the fourth house, that means you're about to get some money from your family, from your mom or your family, or from property, or or just resources. Like I had a client that had Jupiter going through the fourth house, and she decided to travel around the world for a year and a half. And every time she traveled, so every time she said she was going somewhere, somebody was like, oh, I have a house there. You can stay there. You can stay there. So for like a year and a half, she didn't pay rent. She just lived in all these beautiful guest houses all over the world. So that's how Jupiter, which is the planet of luck, can show up in the transit to the fourth house. That's what you should be looking for. You're thinking about going no contact, and then understand, just like astrology, it is a cycle. So it will come around again. There will be many other times. This is not the end. This is just one more layer of the relationship that you have with your person that you are going no contact with.
Oh, that is so awesome to go back. And also, Princess Meghan, can't wait to interview you. And she's a Leo too, isn't she?
Oh yeah, she is. Like we are, like I'm currently manifesting, period, Meghan Markle on this show. Absolutely. Are you kidding me?
Oh my God, questions. Girl. Like when I think I found that out the day of the Queen's funeral. Girl, I don't know if you remember that hat to the side. She did that deep, beautiful curtsy. She had the one tear, and I was like, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. You act for your life. You acted, girl. That's when I was playing with the idea of archetypes and acting in her podcast. And I was like, that's why y'all hate her. I was like, because she
knows how to do this.
And she's meant to be that spotlight. She can't help it. Like she does everything too well. Anyway, so I asked everybody earlier to turn to your turn to the good book of the tarot and pull out the 10 of Swords. But also, I think I want to make it a teeny bit more intricate. When I look for your mom in the deck, when you want to do some work around this, or your father, or your sibling, or if it's a toxic boss, or whoever you need to go no contact with, whoever spouse. Like some of us be living in houses with people and partners. Find them in the deck. For some of us, it will really stand out. Like my mother's a judge and she's Libra. So of course, justice is like when the justice card comes up, I'm like, okay, what's going on at home? And how do I, let me be careful about how I interact and re-enter. Sometimes I like to use a card like that, not to really be looking for answers, but to be something I, in my own mind, I place the identity on that person. Like I put the power in the cards. Cards are cards. Like these are painted pieces of paper. You infuse it with meaning. You infuse it with spirit. Like you place it on your ancestor altar or by your crystals or whatever to like make them powerful. It's about you. Cause you remember Karrie and I, no matter if we're talking about tarot or astrology, we're talking about self-study. So this is you. But sometimes you kind of need an archetype to represent somebody else. So I would say find who that is. Like whoever the person is, you need to have this separation from, especially in your family. And one of the cards in the tarot, I think that is the harbinger of, oh, you need separation and it's a wrap, or at least it's a wrap for now. And I say for now, because even when I read for people, if I do some team building or, or something with a company or a department, I always let them know. I was like, folks like me, we move with the seasons. So this is good for a reason and a season. It's good for like 3 to 4 months for me because you have free will. Who knows what may change or what's going on in other people's lives. The card that I like to meditate on, or that I know when it comes up, and especially if I'm wondering about this, or that's a question that's on my heart, the Ten of Swords. That's another card about endings. Like earlier we talked a little about cards that are about endings and how endings are important, whether it's the Tower card, the Death card. Some beautiful things can arise from this. And even though the Ten of Swords, and I'll just describe it briefly, and the Rider-Waite-Smith, it literally shows someone face down, dead on a beach. I mean, we're going to assume they're dead. Yeah, like we're going to assume that. I'm trying to be light as I talk about it because girl, literally, there's like a cloud, which represents the element air and water. So shit is stormy, like it was tumultuous and things got so bad. And also the Suit of Swords is about your mental space, your mind, anxieties, cares, concerns, stress. And for Black women, we got to be looking out for that. We can die by stress. So when I see tons of swords, oh no, it gives me an idea of someone's state of mind. And I love the Ten of Swords as a card that lets you know, yeah, you should probably be thinking about how you need to end this. It's not about how it may happen from out here, how the other person may end. It's about you needing to stick a fork in it. It's a wrap. 10. You've come to the end of this mental cycle with this person. It has gotten as unhealthy, as hurtful, and as dysfunctional as it can get, as is symbolized by the 10 swords that can also mean surgery or something like that. But anyway, like in this case, yeah, and that it's a wrap and that you can't wait for somebody else to do it. No one else can solve the problem. The solution is within your own hands, and it may seem pointy and angsty and stressful, but it's necessary. Again, like I said, in my example, like I needed the distance to understand what the hell happened. So I know who I am so I can move forward, not only for myself and my own happiness and contentedness, my own relationships, but most importantly for that relationship with the two people that are the most important in the world, like my darling girls. Like, so they don't have to be like, hopefully their challenge will be something different. Their children and my wonderful grandchildren will present them with all kinds of other challenges. But that's a card that I like, that I really like to use, and that when it shows up or pops up, and this is something that's on your heart and on your spirit, that, that might be a sign that, and also another good thing to journal through. And using, what we see in the card, the number and the symbols, the swords, something that might be a good thing to journal and chronicle. So this is your heart work. If you're considering going no contact with someone or separating or really needing to distance yourself or stick a fork in it, for every one of these swords, like name the swords. Like if this is you, what was this first sword? What was the first thing that really let you know I needed to, or when did it first come into your conscious awareness? When did the first injury happen? How did you feel when it happened the second time? Because I promise you, if you're going no contact, there's a litany. You start from the time you met and the first time it happened and how it got to here, right through it, work through it. Oh, and I don't sell hoodoo or remediations when I do spell work or a ritual or something like that. It's for my family or my, like family's close friends. I don't really sell that, but we talk about remediation, how to fix it. Use the element air, use your voice, talk about it. Even again, if you have to go into a room, close the door and scream it or write it or blog about it or sing it, like put on 10 songs, like find a song for every sword and sing your way through it. Use the suit that you see in the card. Use whatever, however you feel air, whatever it means to you. A lot of times it's written, it's words, it's affirmation, it's mantra, it can be chanting, using incense, smoke cleansing and clearing. Like use air, how you understand or healed by or enjoy air to help you work through these swords. So that's your heart work, your tarot heart work for the week. And again, if you do not have a deck, don't even sweat it. Go on Beyonce's internet. There's tons of apps. 10 of Swords. Yeah.
You mean Blue Ivy's internet?
Yeah, Blue Ivy's. That's right. I forget sometimes who's running the show. And that's our heart work for the week. I can't even believe we talked about this.
I love the whole idea of like naming the swords. That really got me. It's just like, oh yeah, because if you need, when you're thinking about going no contact, you'll come up with you can romanticize the past really easily, right? And forget. And so naming the swords, when this one went in, what did it that time? You will follow the path to exactly what you need to make that decision. Halicue, before we wrap up, I wonder if you could give us just kind of a card, like pull a card for just Black women as a collective, in terms of going no contact, just as a collective, because we are people that will probably have to consider this multiple times throughout our lives. So if we could just get as we heal, right? And as we go, North Node is moving into Aries. This is going to be 18 months of us putting ourselves first, right? What kind of advice can we give for the collective of Black women in terms of no contact and moving towards that?
Wow. Okay. This is so practical. The 7 of Pentacles. This is one of the most practical, like in the tarot, of course, the major arcana, the first 22 cards, big booming voices from the sky, major, big deal, esoteric secrets or meanings, stages in your life, milestones. And the rest of the deck, a lot of it is everyday people, everyday places. And sometimes they're so blissfully simple because if you're thinking, what's the next inspired action step I should take? Making an assessment. The 7 of Pentacles. This is literally like, and the Pentacles are about the mundane and the here and now. Like the here and now. This is not pie in the sky. Like this is not ascending and being up here. This is about what's happening right down here on earth. And we need to take an assessment as a collective. We have come really far as a group of women, and we are at a point where the work is not quite done yet, because in the traditional version of this card, it shows a yeoman, like a farmer, like working in the vineyards. We live in California, and I love grapevines. They're all over the place. But he's taking a moment to rest and to reflect and to see what he has built. Not counting your chickens before they hatch, but taking a look. Like it's looking like the harvest is going to be pretty good. And it tells me a little bit about where we are as Black women. The work is not yet done. We have not reaped the ultimate benefit, but we are damn close. Because this is the 7. There's nothing about this card that feels bad. And this is a gentle nudge to make an assessment. Where are we? Who are we? What have we accomplished? What do we have? What's in our domicile? What's the state of our physical body? Like, what are how well are we resourced? And we begin to future vision, right? To dreamstorm towards the future. What do we want? And if we're talking about putting this in the context of going no contact, what are we free to grow and harvest if we set that aside? How can that help us continue to bring in our harvest? And again, the Pentacles represent abundance, prosperity, the things that the ancestors want for us. They want for us to be, in African traditional religions, you're suffering because you need to learn a lesson. But in general, the ancestors want us to be whole, healthy, happy. That's what they want. They live through us and in us. Words come out of my mouth that are literally my grandmother. Words come out of my mouth that are my mother, my sisters, my aunts. So that's what they want. And this is how and where we get to that abundance and that prosperity that we deserve, that is rightfully ours. Karrie talks a lot about some things being our birthright. Yeah, this is our birthright. So stopping, taking an assessment. What have we done? What is our labor wrought? And what are we able to harvest? What will we bring in? What will we reap if we give ourselves the distance and the space to tend it, to tend our own crop, our own field, because we deserve it. It is not our job and our burden all the time to bring it in for everybody else. And once we're abundant and prosperous, everything else flows down from that.
Everything. Always happens that way.
Thank you for reminding me to do that.
Yes. Well, so many people are listening and probably in this position and just wanting to know. And for me, I wanted to know how the collective moves forward, because we're all a part of each other. So yeah, Black women as a collective, get into assessing, take inventory, see where we've been, but also see where we want to go. Exciting.
Indeed.
All right, my love.
We'll see y'all next time. See y'all next time.
And
study you. You're the coolest, most interesting person that you know. Use your cards.